Greetings and welcome to the Tiger's Den. This is the voice of Cheryl, and I am Toothless Tiger, coming to you with my 12th episode of books from the library of Toothless. The book we're going to be hearing is Toxic Parents, Overcoming Their Hurtful Legacy and Reclaiming Your Life. There's a lot of toxicity in our community, in our respective communities, as well as the YouTube community. It's time for us to start looking at mental health. Emotional trauma is what I call it. To see why we do the things we do. Why do we hurt each other the way we hurt each other? Why are we not trying to do something about it? We say the children are our future, but are they really? And if they are, what type of future are we leaving them? So I want to just delve into Dr. Susan Forward's book with Craig Buck. I want to tell you a little bit about it. And then I want to invite you to join me tomorrow, July 2nd, at 8:15 p.m. Central Standard Time. Let's talk about it. I'm going to share some more, but I just kind of want to give you a precursor to what to expect. This is a book that you can purchase. It's a very good book. It's an old book that I read when I first started on my journey of recovery from codependency. You see, everything has a timeline. Everything has a beginning. And what we have to do as individuals, we have to find it within ourselves to go back to the beginning and map our way up to where we are today so that we can see what caused us to be the people that we choose to be today. And if we don't know that we have a choice, then how can we heal? I believe all of us are sick. Some of us are just sicker than others. And so I would like to share what she shared with me to help me on my road. You are not to blame for what happened to you. You as a child, but you can do something about it now. The hurtful legacy of toxic parents manifests itself in adults as difficulties with relationships, careers, decision-making, and depression. Whatever the burden you carry, from the shame of family alcoholism or abandonment, to the scars of verbal or physical abuse, to the ultimate betrayal of incest, Dr. Forward can help release you from the demons of self-blame once and for all. Who are toxic parents? Number one, the inadequate parents, constantly focusing on their own problems. They turn their children into mini adults who take care of them. The controllers, they use guilt, manipulation, and even over-helpfulness to direct their children's lives. The alcoholics, mired in denial and chaotic mood swings. Their addiction leaves little time or energy for the demands of parenthood. The verbal abuser, whether overtly abusive or subtly sarcastic, they demoralize their children with constant put downs and rob them of their self-confidence. The physical abuser, incapable of controlling their own deep-seated rage, they often blame their children for their own uncontrollable behavior. The sexual abuser, whether flagrantly sexual or covertly seductive, they are the ultimate betrayers, destroying the very heart of childhood, its innocence. And I said innocence in case I didn't say it correctly. Toxic Parents, Overcoming Their Hurtful Legacy and Reclaiming Your Life, Dr. Susan Forward with Craig Buck. Here are the chapters in this book. Introduction, Part 1, Toxic Parents. Number 1, Godlike Parents, the myth of the perfect parent. Number 2, just because you didn't mean it doesn't mean it didn't hurt, the inadequate parents. Number 3, why can't they let me live my own life, the controllers. Number 4, no one in the family is an alcoholic, the alcoholics. Number 5, the bruises are all on the inside, the verbal abuser. Number 6, sometimes the bruises are on the outside too, the physical abusers. Number 7, the ultimate betrayal, the sexual abusers. Number 8, why do parents behave this way, the family system. Part 2, Reclaiming Your Life. Number 9, you don't have to forgive. Number 10, I'm a grown up. Why don't I feel like one? Number 11, the beginnings of self-definition. Number 12, who's really responsible? Number 13, confrontation, the road to independence. Number 14, healing the incest wound. Number 15, breaking the cycle. The epilogue, letting go of the struggle. And then there are suggested readings on page 324. I'm just going to read a little of the introduction and we'll start discussing everything if you should join me tomorrow. Introduction. Sure, my father used to hit me, but he only did it to keep me in line. I don't see what this has to do with my marriage falling apart. That was Gordon talking. Gordon, 38, a successful orthopedic surgeon, came to see me when his wife of 6 years left him. He was desperate to get her back, but she told him she wouldn't even consider coming home until he sought help for his uncontrollable temper. She was frightened by his sudden outbursts and worn down by his relentless criticism. Gordon knew he had a hot temper and that he could be a nag, but still, he was shocked when his wife walked out. I asked Gordon to tell me about himself and guided him with a few questions as he talked. When I asked him about his parents, he smiled and painted a glowing picture, especially of his father, a distinguished Midwestern cardiologist. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have become a doctor. He's the best. His patients all think he's a saint. I asked him what his relationship with his father was like now. He laughed nervously and said, "It was great until I told him I was thinking about going into holistic medicine. You'd think I wanted to be a mass murderer. I told him about 3 months ago, and now every time we talk, he starts ranting about how he didn't send me to medical school to become a faith healer. It really got bad yesterday. He got upset and told me I should forget I was ever a part of his family. That really hurts. I don't know. Maybe holistic medicine isn't such a good idea." While Gordon was describing his father, who was obviously not as wonderful as Gordon would have liked me to believe, I noticed that he began to claps and unclaps his hands in a very agitated way. When he caught himself doing this, He restrained himself by placing his fingertips together in a way that professors often do at their desk. It seemed a gesture he might have picked up from his father. I asked Gordon whether his father had always been so tyrannical. No, not really. I mean, he yelled and screamed a lot, and I got spanked once in a while, like any other kid, but I wouldn't call him a tyrant. Something about the way he said the word spanked, some subtle emotional change in his voice struck me. I asked him about it. It turned out that his father had spanked him 2 or 3 times a week with a belt. It hadn't taken much for Gordon to incur a beating. A defiant word, a below par report card, or a forgotten chore were all sufficiently venal crimes. Nor was Gordon's father particular about where he beat his child. Gordon recalled being beaten on his back, his legs, his arms, his hands, and his buttocks. I asked Gordon how badly his father had physically hurt him. Gordon: I didn't bleed or anything. I mean, I turned out okay. He just needed to keep me in line. Susan: But you were scared of him, weren't you? Gordon: I was scared to death. But isn't that the way it's supposed to be with parents? Susan: Gordon, is that how you want your children to feel about you? Gordon avoided my eyes. This was making him extremely uncomfortable. I pulled my chair closer and continued gently. Your wife is a pediatrician. If she saw a child in her office with the same marks on his body that you had on yours from one of your father's spankings, would she be required by law to report it to the authorities? Gordon didn't have to answer. His eyes filled with tears at the realization. He whispered, I'm getting a terrible knot in my stomach. Gordon's defenses were down. Though he was in terrible emotional pain, he had uncovered for the first time the primary long-hidden source of his temper. He had been containing a volcano of anger against his father since childhood, and whenever the pressure got too great, he would erupt at whoever was handy, usually his wife. I knew what we had to do: acknowledge and heal the battered little boy inside of him. When I got home that evening, I found myself still thinking about Gordon. I kept seeing his eyes filled with tears as he realized how he had been mistreated. I thought about the thousands of adult men and women with whom I had worked, whose daily lives were being influenced, even controlled by patterns set during childhood by emotionally destructive parents. I realized there must be millions more who had no idea why their lives weren't working, yet who could be helped. That's when I decided to write this book. Now, the first question, why look back? Gordon's story is not unusual. I've seen thousands of patients in my 18 years as a therapist, but in private practice and in hospital groups, and a solid majority have suffered a damaged sense of self-worth because a parent had regularly hit them or criticized them or joked about how stupid or ugly or unwanted they were, or overwhelmed them with guilt, or sexually abused them, or forced too much responsibility on them, or desperately overprotected them. Like Gordon, few of these people made the connection between their parents and their problems. This is a common emotional blind spot. People simply have trouble seeing that their relationship with their parents has a major impact on their lives. Therapeutic trends, which used to rely heavily on the analysis of early life experiences, have moved away from the then and into the here and now. The emphasis has shifted to examining and changing current behavior, relationships, and functioning. I believe this shift is due to clients' rejection of the enormous amounts of time and money required for many traditional therapies, often for minimal results. I am a great believer in short term therapy that focuses on changing destructive behavior patterns. But my experience has taught me that it is not enough to treat the symptoms. You must also deal with the source of those symptoms. You, Therapy is most effective when it proceeds down a double track, both changing current self defeating behavior and disconnecting from the traumas of the past. Gordon had to learn techniques to control his anger, but in order to make permanent changes, ones that would stand up under stress, he also had to go back and deal with the pain of his childhood. Our parents plant mental and emotional seeds in us, seeds that grow as we do. In some families, these are seeds of love, respect, and independence. But in many others, they are seeds of fear, obligation, or guilt. If you belong to this second group, this book is for you. As you grow into adulthood, these seeds grow into invisible weeds that invaded your life in ways you never dreamed of. These tendrils may have harmed your relationships, your career, or your family. They have certainly undermined your self confidence and self esteem. I'm going to help you find those weeds and root them out. What is a toxic parent? Question number two. All parents are deficient from time to time. I made some terrible mistakes with my children, which caused them and me considerable pain. No parent can be emotionally available all the time. It's perfectly normal for parents to yell at their children once in a while. All parents occasionally become too controlling, and most parents spank their children, even if rarely. Do these lapses make them cruel or unsuitable parents? Of course not. Parents are only human and have plenty of problems of their own. And most children can deal with an occasional outburst of anger as long as they have plenty of love and understanding to counter it. But there are many parents whose negative patterns of behavior are consistent and dominant in a child's life. These are the parents who do the harm. As I searched for a phrase to describe the common ground that these harmful parents share, the word that kept running through my mind was toxic. Like a chemical toxin, the emotional damage inflicted by these parents spreads throughout a child's being, and as the child grows, so does the pain. What better word than toxic to describe parents who inflict ongoing trauma, abuse, and denigration on their children, and in most cases continue to do so even after their children are grown? There are exceptions to the ongoing or repetitive aspects of this definition. Sexual or physical abuse can be so traumatic that often a single occurrence is enough to cause tremendous emotional damage. Unfortunately, parenting, one of our most crucial skills, is still very much a seat of the pants endeavor. Our parents learned it primarily from people who may not have done such a good job, their parents. Many of the time, honor techniques that have been passed down from generation to generation are quite simply bad advice masquerading as wisdom. Remember, spare the rod and spoil the child. What do toxic parents do to you? Question number 3. Whether adult children of toxic parents were beaten when little or left alone too much, sexually abused or treated like fools, overprotected or overburdened by guilt, they almost all suffer surprisingly similar symptoms: damaged self esteem leading to self destructive behavior. In one way or another, they almost all feel worthless, unlovable, and inadequate. These feelings stem to a great degree from the fact that children of toxic parents blame themselves for their parents' abuse, sometimes consciously, sometimes not. It is easier for a defenseless, dependent child to feel guilty for having done something bad to deserve daddy's rage than it is for that child to accept the frightening fact that daddy, the protector, can't be trusted. When these children become adults, they continue to bear these burdens of guilt and inadequacy, making it extremely difficult for them to develop a positive self image. The resulting lack of confidence and self worth can in turn color every aspect of their lives. Taking your psychological pulse. Question number 4, or I should say statement. It is not always easy to figure out whether your parents are or were toxic. A lot of people have difficult relationships with their parents. That alone doesn't mean your parents are emotionally destructive. Many people find themselves struggling on the cusp, questioning whether they were mistreated or whether they're being oversensitive. I've designed the following questionnaire to help you take the first steps towards resolving that struggle. Some of these questions may make you feel anxious or uncomfortable. That's okay. It is always difficult to tell ourselves the truth about how much our parents may have hurt us. Although it might be painful, an emotional reaction is perfectly healthy. For the sake of simplicity, these questions refer to parents in the plural, even though your answer may apply to only one parent. So I'm going to start with the questions. Number 1. This is not the question. This is your relationship with your parents when you were a child. Now comes number 1, the question. Did your parents tell you you were bad or worthless? Did they call you insulting names? Did they constantly criticize you? Number 2. Did your parents use physical pain to discipline you? Did they beat you with belts, brushes, or other objects? Number 3. Did your parents get drunk or use drugs? Did you feel confused, uncomfortable, frightened, hurt, or ashamed by this? Number 4. Were your parents severely depressed or unavailable because of emotional difficulties or mental or physical illness? Number 5. Did you have to take care of your parents because of their problems? Number 6. Did your parents do anything to you that had to be kept secret? Were you sexually molested in any way? Number 7. Were you frightened of your parents a great deal of the time? Number 8. Were you afraid to express anger at your parents? And I'm just going to take a pause for a moment and just remind you that I am sharing this information from the 1996 Fair Use Act that gives us permission to use copyrighted material without permission. And we can do so for criticism, commentary, research, education, and teaching. And so what I want to do is, I'm not a psychiatrist, nor am I a psychologist, but I have worked several programs of recovery, and I know the path that I took. Self-help is your best friend. It's just like this name, YouTube. You is what it starts with. So everything in your life begins and ends with you. And if you want to be free of the craziness that we see every day, then you got to go to work. Now, I know on every television show, people are getting healthy and they're eating right and they're exercising and they're looking good. But if you don't take care of the emotional, the brain, the mental aspect of your being, you'll just be a well-dressed lie. And so what we want to do is try to help ourselves so that we can help our children, who are our future. Now, going back to number 2, and this is the section, your adult life. Question number 1, do you find yourself in destructive or abusive relationships? Number 2, do you believe that if you get too close to someone, they will hurt and or abandon you? Number 3, do you expect the worst from people, from life in general? Number 4, do you have a hard time knowing who you are, what you feel, and what you want? Number 5, are you afraid that if people knew the real you, they wouldn't like you? Number 6, do you feel anxious when you're successful and frightened that someone will find out you're a fraud? Number 7, do you get angry or sad for no apparent reason? Number 8, are you a perfectionist? Number 9, is it difficult for you to relax or have a good time? Number 10, despite your best intentions, do you find yourself behaving just like your parents? And I really hope that you've made it this far in the video and you would get to hear these questions. And you don't have to answer them, have them all answered by tomorrow. But it would be real good if you would answer whichever questions that you feel comfortable answering, if any. And join me tomorrow as we walk through toxic parents. I think this is just more to us than beefing on YouTube. And I think we're squandering an opportunity to help many people. And when I say help many people, I don't mean to be their psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. I mean with the many talents that we have and the ideas we had when we came to YouTube. We had some kind of idea of what we wanted to share with the world. And I just want to believe that it wasn't just beefing and calling each other out and doxing people's families and putting out the worst things in people's lives on YouTube, things that they have perhaps overcame, perhaps not, but they didn't come here for that. And so I've tried to share with you guys my journey when I learned who we were before we were slaves. What I choose to believe with the research that I've done, you can research and maybe come to a different conclusion. But if you look at some of my older videos, you get to hear a lot of my teachings. If you look at the older videos, you can also look in the description, and I give you some things that you can read so that you can start on your journey if you choose to, or give the assignments to your children. Because what we want to do is teach the babies, because we're not going to be here forever. So, again, I hope that you all will join me on tomorrow. But let's go to part 3, which is your relationship with your parents as an adult. Number 1, do your parents still treat you as if you were a child? Number 2, are many of your major life decisions based upon whether your parents would approve? Number 3, do you have intense emotional or physical reactions after you spend or anticipate spending time with your parents? Number 4, are you afraid to disagree with your parents? Number 5, do your parents manipulate you with threats or guilt? Number 6, do your parents manipulate you with money? Number 7, do you feel responsible for how your parents feel? If they're unhappy, do you feel it's your fault? Is it your job to make it better for them? Number 8, do you believe that no matter what you do, it's never good enough for your parents? Number 9, do you believe that someday, somehow, your parents are going to change for the better? One moment, please let me take this call. Okay, thank you for waiting. If you answered yes to even 1/3 of these questions, there is a great deal in this book that can help you. Even though some of the chapters may not seem relevant to your situation, it's important to remember that all toxic parents, regardless of the nature of their abuse, basically leave the same scars. For example, your parents may not have been alcoholic, but the chaos, instability, and loss of childhood that typify alcoholic homes are just as real for children of other types of toxic parents. The principles and techniques of recovery are similar for all adult children as well. So I urge you not to miss any of the chapters. Freeing yourself from the legacy of toxic parents. If you are an adult child of toxic parents, there are many things you can do to free yourself from their distorted legacy of guilt and self doubt. I'll be discussing these various strategies throughout this book, and I want you to proceed with a great deal of hope, not the deluded hope that your parents will magically change, but the realistic hope that you can psychologically unhook from the powerful and destructive influence of your parents. You just have to find the courage. It is within you. I'll be guiding you through a series of steps that will help you see the influences clearly and then deal with it. Regardless of whether you are currently in conflict with your parents, whether you have a civil but surface relationship, whether you haven't seen them for years, or even if one or both are dead. Strange as it may seem, many people are still controlled by their parents after their deaths. The ghosts that haunt them may not be real in a supernatural sense, but they're very real in a psychological one. A parent's demands, expectations, and guilt trips can linger long after that parent has died. You may already have recognized your need to free yourself from your parents' influence. Maybe you even confronted them about it. One of my clients was fond of saying, "My parents don't have any control over my life. I hate them and they know it." But she came to realize that by fanning the flames of her anger, her parents were still manipulating her. and the energy she put into her anger was a drain on other parts of her life. Confrontation is an important step in exorcising the ghosts of the past and the demons of the present, but it must never be done in the heat of anger. Aren't I supposed to be responsible for the way I am? By now, you may be thinking, wait a minute, Susan. Almost all the other books and experts say I can't blame anybody else for my problems. Baloney. Your parents are accountable for what they did. Of course, you are responsible for your adult life, but that life was largely shaped by experiences over which you had no control. The fact is, you are not responsible for what was done to you as a defenseless child. You are responsible for taking positive steps to do something about it now. What can this book do for me? We're beginning an important journey together. It is a journey of truth and discovery. At its end, you will find yourself far more in charge of your life than ever before. I'm not going to make grandiose assurances about your problems disappearing magically overnight. But if you have the courage and strength to do the work in this book, you will be able to reclaim from your parents much of the power due you as an adult, and most of the dignity due you as a human being. This work does carry an emotional price tag. Once you peel away your defenses, you'll discover feelings of rage, anxiety, hurt, confusion, and especially grief. The destruction of your lifelong image of your parents can elicit powerful feelings of loss and abandonment. I want you to approach the material in this book at your own pace. If some of the work makes you uncomfortable, give it plenty of time. What's important here is progress, not speed. To illustrate the concepts in this book, I've drawn heavily on case histories from my practice. Some have been directly transcribed from my tape recordings, while I've constructed others from my notes. All the letters in this book are from my files and have been reproduced exactly as they were written. The unrecorded therapy sessions I've reconstructed are still vivid in my memory, and I've made every effort to recreate them just as they occurred. Only names and identifying circumstances have been changed for legal reasons. None of these cases has been dramatized. These cases may seem sensational, but in fact, they are typical. I did not search my files for the most provocative or dramatic cases. Rather, I chose cases that most clearly represents the types of stories I hear every day. The issues I will raise in this book are not aberrations of the human condition. They are part of it. This book is divided into two sections. In the first, we will examine how different types of toxic parents operate. We'll explore various ways in which your parents might have hurt you and might still be hurting you. This understanding will prepare you for the second section, in which I'll give you specific behavioral techniques to enable you to reserve the balance of power in your relationships with your toxic parents. The process of diminishing the negative power of your parents is a gradual one, but it will eventually release your inner strength, the self that's been hiding all these years, the unique and loving person you were meant to be. Together, we'll help free that person so that your life can finally be your own. Now, I hope in hearing this that you don't take away from this that she's blaming your parents for everything that ever happened to you. She's only telling us to take a look at our situation because everyone didn't have what we would consider a toxic home environment. But we all have a human issue. And that's why this is for all humans. If you're interested in wanting to change something that you know that needs to be changed, that's why I have my series of healing the woman inside. Woman is man with the womb. And we all have a little girl and a little boy inside of us that's crying out for help. Hopefully, this will prompt you to want to get the book. Again, it's called Toxic Parents, Overcoming Their Hurtful Legacy and Reclaiming Your Life. Please join me on tomorrow, July 2nd, 2023, at 8:15 p.m. Central Standard Time as we speak our wounds, thus healing the family. If you like this video, please like, share, comment. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing, as well as joining my membership. I have memberships as little as 99 cents up to $24.99. If you can find it anywhere in your budget to support the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. I've been trying to share my journey for now going on 2 years, and I've had a good run of it until the last 11 months. And now I'm finding myself trying to redirect, but I had several stories to tell and several topics that I can speak on, and this is one of them. So I hope that you will join me and we can continue to heal. I've done a lot of legwork, but it's never an end to living. Every day we're forever learning and forever uncovering different things that perhaps our minds protected us from at certain stages in our lives. So if you would, please join me as we look at toxic parents. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And please get a pen and paper and do what you can. Listen to this over again if you need to hear it. I read directly from the book. But I would love to have a beautiful discussion with whosoever will. Let them come. And on that note, I have a new song that I did, and I'd like to share it with you guys. I did several, but I'm just going to share one. Did you know that mental health is a family affair? It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Well, one child grows up to be somebody that just loves to learn, and another child grows up to be somebody you just love to burn. Mama loves the both of them. You see, it's in the blood. Both kids are good to mom. Blood thicker than the mud. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Oh, a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Nobody wants to blow. Nobody wants to be left out. You can't leave because your heart is there. But you can't stay because you've been somewhere else. You can't cry because you look broke down, but you're crying anyway because you're all broke down. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Well, it's a family affair. Hey, hey. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. Everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone to fulfill my needs. A lonely place to be. So I learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity. Because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. The greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all.